Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Greek Week. I am Mona Duncan, and I'm joined by my co-host, which is Jan Moray. And today we're going to be talking about agreeing to disagree. And Jan is the one that came up with this little discussion for us. So, Jan, what are your thoughts about agreeing to disagree?
Agreeing to disagree. When I first heard this term quite a number of years ago, I was in an operating committee meeting, and there were two people, the vice president and one of the other directors weren't agreeing, and there was a lot of conflict, and finally the vice president said, well, let's just agree to disagree. And I always thought that was a pretty good statement there, because so a lot of times we feel like we have to get other people to believe what we believe and to change their mind and to agree with us. But that's difficult to change somebody's mind, and I feel like that's a lot of external control to think that that I'm going to change this person's mind. And then, more recently, the conversations I've been hearing, when there's a disagreement, I'm starting to hear the other person say, "But you don't understand. You just don't understand." And I'm thinking, well, I think I do understand your point of view. What I think that the deal is here is I just don't agree with what you're saying, or my values are different from yours, so I'm coming to a different conclusion than you are. And so just because I don't believe what you're saying, I don't agree with what you're saying, doesn't mean that any one of us is wrong, and we don't need to go into a debate to try to prove that the other person is wrong. It's just, hey, we've got a difference of opinion. We have a different value system, and so let's just agree to disagree. But I mean, we talk about perceptions, and our perceptions, and they determine our value systems. They're all very different, and we need to appreciate that different people have different things that are important to them. And just because I'm not agreeing with what you say doesn't mean that I'm wrong, or that I'm not understanding. I don't understand. I very much do understand, I think. Maybe we should talk a little bit more about whether I understand or not. But don't just say, throw your hands up and go, oh, you just don't understand. That's kind of where I'm going here.
Right. Well, I know personally, I'm a pretty understanding person, and what I haven't experienced personally, I've certainly read about it. So, I mean, I can understand what you're saying. Yeah. And then I find I need a reality check.
Yes. Yeah.
And whenever I saw what you chose as our topic this week, I began to really think about that. And I have three examples here that was kind of the reality check for me. And that is that as we were unpacking, Garland and I are traveling. We're in the country resort in Canyon Lake, and we were unpacking, and he always carries this little portable fan with, because he likes something blowing on him all the time. So anyway, we were carrying things in, and it was the end. The trunk was nearly empty, and I was going to pick up the fan, and he said, "Don't take it in." But the only thing I heard was "in." Take it in. He said, "Don't take it in. Leave it in the car. Don't take it in." But and so the only way we can get any information is to understand is through our senses. And I saw the fan, and I heard "take it in." What I didn't hear was the "don't." And at least not at this time. Anyway, so it's just the thing that all of the things that I use as my guides to know what I know, that leads to my value systems and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of gaps there. And so the second awakening was right here in this very room that I'm in right now, and the ceiling fan. Been here a couple of days already. And so the first morning I woke up, and I was just lying there and thinking of how I'm going to relax and enjoy this weekend and everything. And I looked up, and the fan was not on. That was there. It's on the ceiling. And I thought, well, look at that. One of the blades missing.
Oh.
You know, there was five, the little things there, but one of the blades was missing. And I'm thinking, that's kind of strange. Maybe we need to let the maintenance man or something, whatever. Anyway, I woke up this morning and I looked up at that and the blade is there.
Oh, is that right?
It was my perception. And I'm thinking, what? How could I not have seen that? How could I not have seen that it was there? So my third little way was, well, apparently so, because I didn't do anything. No one else has been in this room. I mean, obviously it was there already. Then the third wake-up call was whenever we went into San Antonio yesterday and we took our brother-in-law out to eat, and we were at a restaurant called Los Angeles. And it kind of harkened me back to whenever I did a 10-day mission trip in Los Angeles. I mean, I was in a completely different world. Even the menu was written in another language. But thankfully, in about number 4 font, they had potatoes, or they had English translation of what it was. That I ordered, and there were people there that of all different hodgepodge of people, which is our whole life. It was there, and my brother-in-law, and talking with him, who has several master's degrees and sees things more quirky than I do, I wasn't understanding his language either. Yeah. So what my point is that...
Marty, before you go into that, why don't you go ahead and turn your video off, because you are starting to break up right now. So that way we can catch everything that you're saying.
Okay, if I put stop video or just turn video off?
Yeah, put the stop video. Yeah.
Okay.
And then...
So I bring it up. And I just video?
Stop video.
Video.
And then your picture should go away, and then hopefully we'll be able to hear you.
Okay. Did that do it?
Well, I still see your picture. Huh. Well, then just keep going. Keep going. There you go. All right.
Oh, there it stopped. There it stopped. There it stopped. There it stopped. Okay. So anyway, really begin to think about this, that we're all speaking the same language, or even if we're not, we're trying to. And so, and thinking back on working with the prisoners, they would always say, you don't understand. You just don't understand. You've never been in prison. You don't understand. And I answer to them, you're right. You're right. I don't understand. Because, and even if I had been in prison, you know what? I couldn't understand what they were going through. And when a friend or a client or a sister or cousin or whomever is telling me about a difficulty they're going through with a mate or a child, and they say, you just don't understand. The bottom line is, I don't understand. I want to. I would like to. Let me see if what I have heard you say is correct. And if it is, maybe could I offer some suggestions, or could I let you see something that I might see that you're right, I don't understand. That's just like, tasting. Oh, you'll love this dish. Well, I don't know about that. We'll taste it and see. And some taste it and they do like it, and some taste it and they don't like it. And our taste, our everything, all of our senses are so different that I don't know if we ever really can understand where someone else is coming from. Well, and that's kind of one of the mysteries that I want to live in.
Do you really think it's that you don't understand, or that you just you can't really say I know what you mean, and I know what that's like, because you haven't experienced? If you try to understand where another person is coming from and another person's point of view, even though you don't really agree with them, that you try to understand where they're coming from.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking I understand because I've been through some difficult times. I mean, I had this one friend that has been coming back to me for classes and for counsel for quite some time. And she's from another country and left to come to America and didn't speak the language at all and had to learn it while she was here. And, there are things about that I can understand, but yet I don't know where she's coming from. I can't understand it the way he understands it.
Right. And I mean, I think there's a difference. At least that's the way I look at it. There's a difference between them. I'm trying to understand by asking you questions and getting you to tell me a little bit more about what you're feeling and what you're thinking and what your beliefs are about it. And I can never say, yeah, I know what that's like, because I don't know what that's like because I've never experienced it myself. But I can try to understand where you're coming from and why you would have that opinion.
Right, and especially if they want to share it, apparently they want to share it with someone.
Right, yeah.
If they're telling me where they're coming from, apparently they're wanting me to see where they're coming from so that I can understand, or maybe, give them a free pass or whatever. And so there are frequently times I say, you know what, I can see things that I think maybe you can't see.
Right.
Such as I can see that you are very determined. Of course, sometimes as in working with the prisoners, that determination was really rebellion, but it was just their way of trying to get someone to hear what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like never, it's seeing the person, seeing who they are, so that I can understand that we are more alike than we're different, but we are different. And I can't understand where you are coming from. But I can see that you're hurt.
Right.
I can see that you're frustrated. I can see that there's a pain there. I can see that there is a longing for reconciliation. Even though what you're telling me is, what the boss did or what the kid did or what the mate did, I can see even, and then sometimes I have found people to be a little bit, well, maybe I do want to reconcile. I just want them to hear my point of view, like at that committee meeting that you were on. If you heard my point of view and if you really understood it, you probably want to do it. Want to accept it.
That's the premise, is that if you really did understand, you'd want to do it, but maybe not.
Right. So then in the agreeing to disagree, to me, it is the fact I love you, I hold you in regard, I'm stopping trying to change your mind.
Right.
Because it is what it is. Now let's go play pickleball.
Right. and I think that's where that phrase comes from. At least the way I've been hearing it more recently is when somebody's saying, well, you just don't understand, is because they're trying to convince me or somebody else to believe what they believe or to agree with them on what they're agreeing with. And it's like, I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to understand, or help me understand where you're coming from and why this is so important to you. But I still don't think this is the right decision. Doesn't mean that I don't. I do I think I'm understanding where you're coming from, but I'm still not going to change my mind. And where people are trying to use
it. Not in this instance.
Yeah.
And at least this time, after it's over with, and you're thinking something, you may think, oh, wait a minute, maybe a little ounce of what so and so said would have worked. Or maybe they did understand more than I thought they were understanding. Or maybe, just maybe, I have gained something from their verbiage that helped me add to what my idea already was, and I don't even know I've taken that from them.
Yeah. A lot of times you don't realize where it came from. All of a sudden,
did not take, don't take it in.
Yeah.
About picking up the fan to the condo.
Yeah.
I did not hear the don't. And whenever you add that to it, whether the person is frustration or just repeat again, or whether it's just a think time later that you added, because we're always getting ideas and things from people and we don't even know we're getting them. And then it'll seep in and it kind of fits with what we've already been thinking, and we've got a whole new idea there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing I kind of like doing when I'm talking to somebody and I see the look on their face that they're just not agreeing with what it is that I have to say. I'm like, okay, I'm just planting the seed here. I don't need an answer today. I don't need you to respond today. Because sometimes you do need time to think about it and ruminate over it. And because the first time you hear something, a lot of times it just sounds strange. And it's like, why would I want to do that? Why do you think that's a good thing? But as you think about it for a while, it kind of sinks in. And a lot of times you don't remember where that seed came from. And then all of a sudden you say something else later on and the other person's going, oh, okay, I think it's sinking in.
And then when they come back and tell you the same thing that you suggested to them as though it was their own idea.
Right. And there's where you got to bite your tongue and you just go, oh, that's a great idea. Because you gain nothing.
That's how we got to realize that everyone must make our own choices.
I'm sorry.
We make our own choices. And we will not accept anything if we don't agree to it.
Right.
And whether we've blown them off or whatever, and finally later accepted their sage advice, it just and I think of that movie, A Miracle on the Brazos. Are you familiar with it? The plane in New York. I mean, not Miracle on the Brazos, Miracle on the Hudson.
Okay. The one that
the plane. 153 people, and they took off, and the geese got up that went down, and they landed, and everyone was, in all the movies that kind of give you flashbacks as to what happened before with people, that you will see a person here and one in another country and one in another city and one in another. You will get their storyline as to they're going to this plane and why they're there and what their dreams goals are. And then whenever the tragedy happens, it turned out to be a miracle in the long run, although it was a tragedy, you can begin to see how the whole picture comes together. And I see that in agreeing to disagree. I'm not seeing it right now.
Right.
That maybe as things begin to sink in, so let's just disagree for the moment, but not be disagreeable about disagreeing.
Yeah, and I think that's real important too, because even when you say you just don't understand, to me that's kind of a put off, that you're just being unreasonable and you're not understanding, and or when you're continuing to disagree and you find like you're getting nowhere. Then you feel like you have to keep your position and argue your position. But once you say things like, well, let's agree to disagree, or well, I'm really trying to understand what's going on about you right now, you're keeping the conversation open instead of closing it.
Yeah, or in the fact that you're right, I don't understand because I've never experienced what you've experienced.
Right.
But I've experienced something similar, and it kind of makes us, because I can see in you that there's a pain there, that there's a frustration there.
Yeah, I understand that.
Maybe we can work together to a viable solution. So with the net, with our connection not being real good, or anyway, I was just thinking of this little song that I learned a long time ago, and come out not only key normal. And the song is, my wish for you, my friend, is this happiness that I found. On this you can depend. It matters not where you're bound. I'll shout it from the mountaintop. I want the world to know this mind set free that came to me. I want to pass it on. And there were many times, even in working with the prisoners, and that you don't understand, I just break into sing.
Did you really?
This happiness, oh, all the time. This happiness that I found, I want to pass it on. And I can depend that it doesn't matter where you're bound, you can take it with you. Whether you are going back to prison because you violated again, whether you're going back to a world that has changed exponentially and it will be difficult to fit in, whether you are going, whether it is the lady that keeps coming back to me that is a single mom now and is having to make things all on her own, that's from another country that still doesn't understand the language. You know what? When you begin to set your mind free, what I'm understanding, there may be something to it. It's like a jigsaw piece that's missing. And I'm trying to get you to understand what's missing in me. I'm not willing to understand. You're saying, oh, look, I'm the piece that goes there. And so it goes back to that as we find commonality. And instead of trying to push on someone, I just back off. Because a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we are breaking relationship.
Yeah. And that's why agree to disagree is so powerful, because you know, when you try to force someone to agree with what you want or what you're trying to say, you're making them you're trying to make them do something that doesn't feel right for them. And saying let's agree to disagree, you're allowing them to have that difference of opinion. Whereas the other ways, no, you got to think the way I think.
And if you do change your mind and begin, whether it's just for the sake of the argument and agree with them, and then they agree with you, and you go with your way, and you're out to be error. Oh, but you don't understand. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And it comes to the fact that, there's so many things that we just can't understand. And it's being willing to, that would be.
Yeah, well, I want to understand, though. Let's keep the conversation going. If this is really that important to you, let's keep talking about it, and maybe I'll gain a little better understanding of what's going on and where you're coming from.
Right.
People may not agree with what you want to do, but I'm gaining a little better understanding of where you're coming from. Maybe after I think about it for a while, maybe I will change my mind, but right now I'm not. But I do want to hear what you have to say. I do want to understand where you're coming from.
And so if we understand, understand it means like, stand under.
Mm-hmm.
I just think of this mom that was just so frustrated with her child in the grocery shopping and bent down to just really fuss at the kid. And all of a sudden she realized, well, no wonder he's so fussy. All I can see is, people's behinds.
Oh.
And whenever you stand under what you're trying to understand, you get a different understanding. Let me stand under your rhetoric. And it may be rhetoric, it may not be, but apparently if we're trying to convince them otherwise, we're seeing it as rhetoric. Mm-hmm. And regardless whether it's in business or politics or philosophies or whatever, if we're accusing the other of not understanding and they're accusing us of not understanding, obviously someone is trying to bring into reality the rhetoric. And maybe they're both a little of that. And that agreeing to disagree, that still remains human and compatible. And working together for the good of the whole. It's like working together for the company. It's working together for family. It's working for the marriage. Together for the committee that we're on.
Right. We have a common goal. We have a common purpose, but we may not agree with everything along the way.
Right. And in not agreeing, at least be somewhat.
I think there's a big difference between understanding and agreeing. You can understand something and still disagree.
Correct. That's the point I was trying to make.
And it all has to do with how we handle the information. All of it. The information, two different people can receive the same information and still disagree. But very often, and most of the time, disagreements are based on different information that people are operating on to make a decision.
Different values.
Well, different value, call it, okay, different values, different information, different values. The information that I'm operating on to make a decision is probably going to be somewhat different from the information that you are operating on to make a decision. And that's probably explains why we come up with different decisions. That's why we disagree, because our information is a little bit different. And very often, people will be operating on information that is either inaccurate or irrelevant. Very often, bad decisions can be made on the basis of inaccurate information or irrelevant information.
But the information is probably relevant to them because of their belief systems or their values.
Well, that's right, but it probably shouldn't be. Very often we make decisions based on the messenger rather than the message.
Sometimes.
Oh, he's a black man. He couldn't be right.
But the information could also be not just irrelevant but it could be incomplete. The information might not be complete. You heard part of it, but you didn't hear all of it. Or
that's right. That's right.
Or you heard something that was inaccurate.
That's right. Incomplete information, and make a decision on the basis of incomplete information. Exactly true. That's what I'm trying to say, is that we operate on different information, complete or incomplete, or relevant or irrelevant, or true or not true. You know, the decisions that we make, if we're based on untrue information, inaccurate information, probably the decision's going to be wrong.
Yeah. Except a lot of times the information that we choose to believe is information that already supports our views. And we don't want to hear the information that will dispute those views.
That's right. But it all depends on whether the information is accurate or not. Let's go back to 2003, and we got into the Iraq War based on information that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Not accurate, false information. And we got into a war that really was a huge mistake based on inaccurate information. That's just one example I'm giving. It's a big example, but that's an example of a bad information leading to a bad decision.
But that's also information that people wanted to hear. They wanted a reason.
Yeah. Oh, they wanted to hear it, but it wasn't accurate.
And
so make it more accurate.
How do you get people to question the information that they get, even though it's something they want to hear?
Well, people need to start looking at the sources of the information.
Well, that's true.
And people need to look at, is it true or not? That's really
but a lot of people don't have the time.
I don't care. Hey, I want to believe in Santa Claus, but it's not true. You know, whether you want to or not is not really relevant. Whether it's true or not is relevant. That's the relevance, not whether you want it or not. We need to take a look at information and see the validity of the information that we're operating on, not whether we want it or not. That's not really relevant. I want a lot of things, but that doesn't make them true. Same with you. We all do. We human beings need to take a look at how we're making our decisions. Are we making our decisions based on validity?
And so how do we go about doing that? I mean, that's difficult to tell people, because once you start that discussion about, well, you need to check your sources, or this other information.
You need to have more information. Both parties probably need to have more information.
And, it's kind of table it for another time.
Okay, we're out of time for now, so we'll go ahead and stop the recording, but we can continue this afterwards. So thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Greet the Week.
Oh,